Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Kenny Conversation, brought to you by JEGS, the leader in high performance aftermarket car parts. Remember to go to jegs.com for everything you need to fix your vehicle or hot rod up. And they are telling me that they have parts in for trucks or Jeeps. Well, you're looking at one of my longest friends in life, one of the most famous race car builders of all time. And I am going to call him the great, because wait till you hear these stats. That is the great Larry Shaw. Larry, how are you doing?
Great, Kenny. Thank you.
Larry Shaw. When I think of Larry, I think of my times where my brother Rusty raced against the great Mark Martin and Larry Phillips, and our time throughout the Ozark region in southern Missouri. But I also think of this new life that you made. Larry, you have built over 5,000 asphalt cars and most recently dirt cars. Let's start with the early days. What do you remember when I first laid eyes on you? You were a crew member for Mark Martin out of Batesville, Arkansas. Tell me about those times.
Well, that was good time. That was rough time. Mark and Rusty, they didn't have a clock. You worked, you got done at night. We would work. Julian Martin had a trucking company, Mark's dad, and he ran his trucking company all day long and closed around 5 or 6. And I had an auto repair and body shop business, so I closed up about the same time. And we'd go up to Mark's and Julian's house and we'd work on a race car till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Just about all the time. And if we wrecked on the weekend, we worked more and more, So that was in the early days when we was running we started off with 255 Chevrolet the first year and the second year. And then third year, we built a big block Camaro, which Julian was all about big blocks. He wouldn't even ride the coffee shop with you. You had a small block, big block. So he stuck this big block in this Camaro that Larry Phillips had put a roll cage in. And now it's sticking out of the hood, so we had to get one for the hood scoop. Got the hood scoop on it. Mark couldn't see over it, so we had to raise him up so he could see over it. But then the next thing, Kenny, it was a big block with all that weight on the front end and no power steering. He couldn't turn it. So that turned out to be an issue. So we went to salvage yard and got a lot of different type power steering pump. And finally, after we threw a lot of belts off, we finally got some wins. So when we did, Mark pretty well dominated everything in Arkansas and around surrounding state with that big block. Third year, we went asphalt. Like you said, that's kind of where I got tangled up with you and Rusty and Mike. We would leave Batesville and go to Springfield Fairgrounds and run on Friday night. And then Saturday night, we would drive all the way down to Fort Smith and race asphalt at Tri-State. Now, in the spring, Max Speak, the one that runs the Fairground Speedway, would always have 3 or 4 races Sunday afternoon or Sunday night. And Mark was going for the points. So we'd have to run, we'd go Springfield on Friday night, go all the way to Fort Smith, and then back to Springfield Sunday night to run, then come back to Batesville. And that's how it all started. That's where I got to meet Rusty and visit with y'all, and that was good days. And I never will forget the time we was at Tri-State, and you got run off the left of the service station.
You remember my early days. And Larry, let me just say this. Let me remind everybody that's watching, we are going to talk about your relationship with Scott Bloomquist. We are going to talk about Billy Moyer. We're going to get there, and we're going to go back and forth because your stories are unbelievable. You have helped, you have raised some of the greatest race car drivers of all time. So we've just laid it out. You had an automotive repair shop. You got to know Julian Martin, which was Mark Martin's dad. When was the time that you realized Mark Martin was really something special, that he could be one of the greatest of all time? When was that? Do you remember a moment?
I'm going to say about the 4th race we run. Julian and Mark and myself, we worked all winter on that first race car. I mean, I'm talking about from October till 1st of April. And we go out here at Independence County Speedway, which was Baseball Speedway now. On about the third or fourth lap, Mark got crowded off. I ain't gonna say run off. He'll say he got crowded off the racetrack. And Julian looked at me and said, "We worked all winter in that car, and that kid had done tore it up." That's how he popped back up on the racetrack and ended up running fourth. So back then, Wade Brooks was who you had to beat in that particular class. So about 5 or 6 races in, we finally beat Wayne. And I don't know, Mark was he's just national talent, just unreal. So that's how it all. I realized right then he's a good racer.
Larry, this is all about you. Okay, so we're not going to go minute by minute, day by day, year by year. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to you. We've laid the platform, where you came from, how you started. So let's talk about you, Larry. You're incredible. Okay, so Mark Martin, he sets sail. He becomes a NASCAR superstar. And then all of a sudden, I remember you going to Baker Race Engines up in Michigan. If I'm not right, straighten me out. So Mark Martin leaves, and you got to have something to do. When do you close the automotive repair shop? Do you go directly to Baker Race Engines?
No, I sold the race car business the year that in '76 when Mark and Julia wanted me to work for them full time. So I sold the race car business and went to work for them full time. So, Mark and Julia and myself, we was together like 5 or 6 years, night and day, just like anything else. When you're around somebody like that so long, it just wears you out. And I ain't saying we got turned against each other or anything, because we still had a good relationship. But
you got tired of each other.
Kevin and Kirk and Cheryl, they stayed right with me all the way through this deal. And when Mark burnt me out, we'll put it that way. Mark burnt me out, and he moved to Dillon in Indiana.
Yeah.
And Ray Baker kept bugging me to come up there and work for him. And I didn't want to go to Michigan, but he sent Cheryl and myself 2 plane tickets here. We flew up there, looked everything over. And Ray said, "Shaw, what I want you to do, I want you to run my whole deal. You order all my parts, you get hooked up with all these manufacturers, and you take care of all the customers." And Cheryl worked for him too. She's the secretary there. And I just wanted to build a racing engine. That's all he wanted to do, just build racing engines. So I ran the whole deal. And the first year there, in that winter, they got 88 inches of snow. Well, that was more snow than I've ever seen in my whole life. And after driving through them roads, snow pile 15 feet high on the side, I told Ray, I said, "Man, I'm out of here when them birds go south next year, Ray. I'm not staying." He said, "Oh, Shaw, you got to stay. So I'll buy you a new Blazer." I said, "It's going to take more." Then he said, "What would it take?" Well, right then I knew that I had to do something. I said, "No, I'm going back south." So that's when I come back, and I had called Ed Howe to see if he'd sell me parts. They had a dealer in Little Rock, which is 110 miles away. And their deal was they wouldn't put a dealer within 100 miles. So I called Herb and Ed, and they said, I told them I was going to come back south and build a race car. Well, they didn't recommend that, but if I was going to do it, they'd like to sell me parts. So we come back down here, and I started Larry Shaw Race Car October 10th of 1979. And my first 31 or 32 cars was asphalt cars, because that's the world I had come out of,
Look, Larry, let me say something. I know that you watched my Kenny conversation with Mark Richards, who runs Rocket Chassis.
Yes, sir.
Sounds to me like both you and him. Is it true Ed Howe was a god back then? Because it sounds like that's the way Rocket Chassis got going, was Ed Howe. And now here you are again, Ed Howe. Was Ed Howe the creator of building race cars?
Yeah, Ed Howe was the one, really he was. And, Junior Hanley was there, and we went to pick up a car one time. Junior was there, and Junior had a brake caliper. He just about didn't hardly have nothing left of that brake caliper. I said, and him and Ed's running against each other. I said, "Will Ed grind his like that, Junior?" Not right off, but he'll be forced to. So Ed, his body's one of the best looking cars in the world, but boy, they would run and win.
They were ugly race cars. They were green, black chassis. He just cared about safety, roll bar padding, and getting that geometry right. But looks didn't take you to victory lane.
No, in black cars, everything was black. And when we all started, everybody painted their chassis black. That was it, And so anyway, when I decided to do this deal, I sold the car right off to Joe Shearer, which Joe passed away. He was a good racer. And then I sold Rick Corelli a car out west, and I got hooked up with Doug Jeffrey in Washington out there, and he had Toby Butler running something for him. And Toby took my car and took it to Phoenix and won the 300 lap. What was the name of that race?
Yeah.
The 300 lapper in 1992.
They were big races.
Yeah, Copper Classic 300.
Yeah.
Listen to that. They started 44 cars in that because I watched that video, and Toby won it. Corelli was second, and third was Hornaday, and I forgot who was fifth. It was good, but AJ Fort, he had wrecked his car the day before. They started 44 cars. He come from 44th and run sixth. He's I passed 38 cars. They're having a good time.
Okay, so Larry, you are building asphalt cars and you're doing good. Okay. The world knows you right now as one of the greatest dirt modified builders in history. And we're going to get there. We're going to get to you and Scott Bloomquist. Okay. So you're building asphalt cars. You're happy. How in the world do you quit building asphalt cars, and how do you end up building dirt cars?
A gentleman from Ponca City, Oklahoma, Van Gim, called me one day. He says, Shaw, you don't know me, but I want to buy one of your cars. I think he's going to run that little asphalt track there in Athens, Oklahoma. I said, well, where you going to run at? He said, I'm going to start running dirt. I said, I just built an asphalt car. Build me one. I'll make it work. I said, well, I don't know anything about all that. He said, well, go ahead and do it. So I built him one. Okay, so he went and raced it. And what happened then, on one Friday afternoon, Don Jeter from Woodruff, Oklahoma called me. He's an oil well man. He said, Shaw, I hear you built a pretty good race car. I said, I think I do. He said, I'm going to come over. Are you busy Monday? I said, no, sir. I'm going to come over and talk to you Monday about buying a car for Buck Cadwell, which Buck passed away now too. All these people dying on us. Buck had passed away. He was a good driver. So he landed out here, and I didn't know he was in an airplane. He come off, and he's like 6'8". And he introduced himself, and he said, so I want you to build me a car. We're going to go run some NHRA shows. And I said, that's pretty healthy. I know it, but I got a good driver. He said, what kind of motor we need? I said, well, we need a Baker 402 if you call up there. Well, you got time to go with me up there? I said, when? He said, right now. I said, I got to be back here Wednesday night. He said, we'll be back. Well, I didn't know he had a King Air sitting at the airport. So we go get in that King Air and we go to Baker's, and we get up at Baker's and we go back in Ray's engine room. That's where he stayed all the time. And Don said, Shaw, which one of these motors we need here? And he had a tag on one that said 402. I said, we need one like that 402 there. Don said, we'll take it. Ray said, oh, no, that goes to Georgia. I can't sell that motor. He said, I'm shipping it to you. I beg you no one, ship it in a couple of weeks. He said, no, we want it right now. We got to have it now. He said, well, when you going to race? He said, a week from Friday. Well, see, that's the first I've heard of that. I mean, I've been building asphalt cars, don't have a clue about how to even start building a dirt car. But I went ahead. Anyway, he pulled out a whole bunch of $100 bills and told Ray, he said, I'll take that motor, pay you for nothing, and you can ship it to us. So
when he had this airplane, was this like, this is the first time I know Julian Martin had a big trucking company. This is Mark Martin's dad. And I know Julian was wealthy, but for him to have an airplane and just pay for everything right away.
He had oil wells and business in Woodruff, Oklahoma. He was real big out in Woodruff, Oklahoma. Everybody knows him. So anyway, we leave Baker's and we started back at the airport. And Don said, Shaw, what else we need in Michigan? I said, well, Ed Howland just built some new stuff. They want me to try one. And he said, where's he at? And I said, Beaverton, Michigan. He asked that pilot. He said, what's the closest town airport to Beaverton? He looked, he said, Saginaw. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, so I called Herb. I said, hey, Herb, you got any of them new stuff done? He said, yeah, I'm getting ready to ship you 3 tomorrow. I said, hey, can I get one today? He said, where you at? And I said, Grand Rapids. He said, Shaw, you're 2.5 hours from me. So we close at 5, and I got to be somewhere tonight. I said, well, on your way home, can you take one to the Saginaw airport for me? You can get a stub at the airplane. I said, yes, sir. So anyway, we get the stub, and here's how it all started. We get back home late that night, and Tuesday morning, my little brother Dennis and Claude Reed, we started building that car. And you know, what I did, Kenny, I built that thing like an asphalt car. I mean, it had it real close, aerodynamic, close to the ground, and just real slick.
Let me ask you this, Larry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it amazes me I think what made Ed Howe great is he didn't mind selling anything. So here he is selling you front stubs, and he would sell radiators, and he would sell steering wheels. This had to be an awesome deal for you where you could just go to Ed Howe and they had you an asphalt front clip designed.
Yeah, he did. And then, but you know, when I got back down here and we got that car done, and I'll finish up this little story. We lead up here and we go to, I didn't even have grain scales at the time because with asphalt cars, you just kind of measure and did stuff, you know. Went to Macomb Firestone place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and used his scales. And we leave there and we go to Hutchinson, Kansas. And I tell everybody the good Lord lined up everything perfect for me that weekend. We get out there. This was a brand new 3/8 mile slick, quite a bit of bank track, slick from top to bottom. And we set quick time like the 8/10, won the trophy dash, won the heat race. And the next day we lined up and ran a 60-lap feature. And we lapped all the way up to second place car. And the second place car with that guy that won one of my dirt cars. Van Gamble, he runs second to it. So when I left the racetrack that day, I had sold 7 race cars, and one of them was to Billy Moyer.
Whoa, here we go now.
So when we started home, I stopped there. You know, I didn't have a phone back then. That was in 1980. So I stopped at the truck stop and told Cheryl that, well, we're out of asphalt business for a little while because I sold 7 dirt cars out here. But that didn't go away because later on, within 5 years, I had to build Bill Davis and Mark Martin some short track cars when Mark went east and come back home with some issues. Now I built Toby them cars. I kept building asphalt cars and dirt cars. And it's hard to be both. It's hard to serve both people because the dirt people don't like you because you build an asphalt car. The asphalt people don't like you because you build dirt cars. You know?
Yeah, but you're a good person. So Larry, I like to steer these conversations. The one thing that you said that I listened to, and you know, it's sad to say in life. So like people know me for TV, but I want them to know me for me. And, you know, we all know you for being Larry Shaw, the great race car builder, but everybody else knows you for Larry Shaw and Billy Moyer. Whether we like these things or not, it feels to me like when you and Billy Moyer got together, oh my God, you were the biggest builder in America. You and Billy Moyer set things on fire. Tell me about that relationship with you and Billy Moyer.
Well, I got Billy's car done, and he come and got it, and he took it back to Iowa and won a few races up there. But I built him a new car, and he said he was going to run it in Kansas City. That was Lakeside, Kansas City. You remember how big a bank that was?
Oh, yeah.
He went over that wall. He set quick time in the heat race. He went over that wall and landed out there in the parking lot. So I had to get my truck driver down there. And I get around there, and he's looking that thing over. He said, Shaw, what do you think? I said, you ain't got nothing left here, Billy. He said, what are we going to do? I said, why don't you do this here? Why don't you go back home and load up all your stuff you got up there and come to Batesville, and you can live with us, and I'll put a house car program together. I was probably one of the first ones that did that house car program. But what I would do, you know, I said, come on down, and if you need new brake rotors, we'll put them on, and then at the end of the year, I'll sell them at an auction or something. I said, recover some of my business. So that's where we started. And of course, you know, we get back to Larry Field in a minute, but right off, you know, when we got hooked up, NHRA was a big deal down in here. Larry and Billy run all the time, Lebanon and Bolivar and all them tracks. So Billy and myself, we won hundreds and hundreds of races.
Hundreds. Yes.
And you know, I'm not saying I was the first one to come up with a strut rod front end, but I think I was because I was at I-30 Speedway one night, and a kid was driving a numbering car. I'll never forget, it was a 66 Ryder car, a trucking company. Didn't have anything to do with things, but I remember that car. That thing was so fast through the turn, Kenny. I wanted to talk to him, and I said, hey, he knowed me because in Arkansas, it kind of got to be a pretty good name. I said, can I look at your car? Oh, yeah, Mr. Shaw, go ahead. I said, what is this? He says, 65 Ford Torino. I mean, Kitty, that thing was bad through the turn. So I come back home Monday, and I call Ed. I said, hey, Ed, we need to build some strut rods front end. I said, man, I seen one there the other night. I said, I think that's going to be the front end of the future. Oh, Shaw, so I got all this stuff tied up General Motors. I couldn't even think about that. I said, I think I'm going to build something. So I built some cars, and sure enough, that strut rod front end, that pretty well everybody got strut rod front end now.
That was it. You innovated, and let's be clear about this. And that's what everybody has now. The front strut, instead of a
Ford front end.
Okay, but everybody ran the wishbone lower A-frames.
That's right.
I'm bragging on you right now, Larry. You come out, I got one. I cut the front clip off my Dillon car. I came to your shop, and it was Ferris who helped me put it on, one of your fabricators. Me and Donnie Jumper came down there because it was all the rage. Larry Shaw's got the front strut. You are the first one.
Bush Miller put one on his Harley Davidson, his Port City car.
That's
and
right.
And then he called another one. Then he called one up. I could make it with rear strut rods because it was hitting a sway bar. So I made him one, but that never was broadcast. But Bush won a lot of motor races.
You're right. I believe we did go to the rear and we cut a notch in the A-frame. And anyway, we're seeing these nowadays. They are front struts because we don't run sway bars on today's dirt super late models. They do have a rear mount right now to this day, but they do favor the front. Everybody's struts are to the front. Larry, you deserve that credit. You created and you marketed that strut car.
The next thing, talking about Moyer, we won everything around here, and we decided. But the problem was back then, Jeff Purvis and Scott Bloomquist had those leaf springs and coilovers, and Rayburn had some of the swing arm stuff. And we do pretty good here in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Louisiana, and Alabama. But we'd go east. Jeff Purvis them would just kill us with those leaf spring cars at Atomic Speedway, where we used to put on that bank, they'd get launched off them turns. And we'd leave here with 4-bar stuff on because we was pretty good. We get over there and we'd change that stuff between the heat race and the feature. And put the leaf springs back under it, So in 1986, I told Billy, I said, look here, I called Earl Gertie and asked if he'd help me out on the motor, and he said he would. So he sold me a 430 motor.
430 Gertie.
Gave me a little time to pay for it. And I went back there and talked to Billy. He's in the back shop. I said, look here, Billy, here's what we're going to do. I said, I just bought you a 430 Gertie. No kidding. I said, yeah. Here's what we're going to do. The only way we're going to do this, I ain't closed the deal yet, so you're going to have to go with my deal now. What do you want to do, Shaw? I said, we're going to leave those leaf springs and cool over here because we've been playing with them bird cages, 4-bar stuff. We've been watching. We got that from drag racing people, watching them, some of the drag people. And Billy had that. We had the little draft board in our office, so he played them 4-bars all the time and moved them up, down, around. And I said, we're going to leave here with that 4-bar stuff under that car. And we're not even taking them leaves and cool. We're going to go up and we'll make that work. So sure enough, we go to Pittsburgh, West Virginia for the Dirt Track World Championship in 1986, and we won it. And Kenny, that paid $40,000 in 1986, which I didn't get a penny of that, but that's what it paid.
Larry, you are an innovator. You are extremely famous. You brought some of these ideas to the forefront. We are running, the bird cage 4 bars right now. I remember, putting the short J bar, except it was just, we were coming off the left side. Anyway, we put some of these things on my brother Mike's Rayburn car because you invented it. That's what I'm trying to say. When you and Billy were together, you set the dirt racing world on fire, and you created the struts, you created the 4-bar. You really did reinvent dirt racing at that time, don't you think?
I think I had a big part of it, but boy, there's so many good car builders out there. But back when I started building cars, they wasn't about 5 or 6 car builders. All it was, you had Rayburn, he just got started. You had Callahan, Bullet, and Custom, Barry Wright. They wasn't very, and then of course Masterbuilt, and we get to Masterbuilt a little bit and talk about Bloomquist, but that's about it. If you went and won a race on Sunday or on the weekend, you didn't have to win it, but if you finish good, people are going to buy product off of you next week.
Yeah.
I had a little attitude back then. If I didn't win the race, you had to really be hustling to beat me out of the pits because I'd get out of there. I got over that finally, but I wanted to win.
Yeah. Well, it brought you a lot of success. You sold over 5,000 race cars, made a wonderful living. Now you look good right now. You're retired down there. Are you in Batesville, Arkansas still?
Yes, sir. I'm still here.
Okay. Now we're going for the granddaddy of them all. One of the greatest stories in the history of all dirt racing. And it does not have to do with a super late model. So one of the greatest stories in the history of dirt racing does not have to do with a dirt super late model. It has to do with the Alltel 100 Championship in Batesville, Arkansas. This race is going to pay $100,000 to win for modifieds. And in America, all the racers, I mean, there's 340 cars entered. And I'm going to let you tell the story now. You receive a phone call from Scott Bloomquist. Tell us where this goes.
Well, I'll take, when Scott come from the West Coast going east.
Yeah.
He stopped my race car shop was on the side of a small street. He pulled up out front in an old truck and a trailer. I think it had a house trailer accident. It just looked like it's barely hanging together. And he stopped and told me he was Scott Bloomquist. And I said, who? And he told me to repeat it because I make sure I had the name right. He said, Scott Bloomquist, I'm from California. I'm going east. I'll find a place I can stop and somebody will let me race out of their shop. I'll pay rent. I just need a place to stop. And so he said, I stopped at Fort Smith and talked to Donnie Krasberg, Southwest Speed, but he didn't have room for me. Tommy Lester was running his car at the time, and you're my next stop. So I had just had Moyer a couple of years, and I had him in the back shop. I didn't really have no room for him, and so I told him, I said, I can do something, Scott, I can't. So then he goes on east, get over around Newport Atomic Speedway. He started off over in a stock stub car running with them late models. When NHRA come to town, I don't remember if he qualified second or third, but he did run fourth in that 100-lap feature, with stock stuff. So after that, Masterbuilt takes it, and that rest of it's history. Now back to the Alltel. He called me.
Let me ask you this first. When
Okay.
Scott Bloomquist came from the West, he was out there in California, and they said he was a hippie. He had the long hair. He liked the beach atmosphere. He liked the look of these rock and roll people. When he rolled up to your place years ago, did he look like a hippie? Did he have all that long hair?
He did, but yeah, that's what he had. It was just like you're talking about. That would have been in 1982 or 83, somewhere right around there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the Alltel 100. Bloomquist calls you.
He called me about 3 weeks. Well, start off with, be back up here. Mooney, when he got ready to do that, he told me he's going to pay $100,000 win, and he's going to cut the entry off at $400.
Whoa.
And I said, I don't know if you can get that many, Mooney, because I said, when are you going to run it? He said, May or June. I said, well, IMCA is going to already start their season. You're not going to get their car. They'll come for $100,000. Well, he had 403 cars entered. 3 of them was NASCAR. Kenny Schrader, Bill Elliott, and Dave Blaney, and maybe one more. So he had over 300 cars because them that runs IMCA, they didn't come. They went ahead and run a weekly show, get points for the end of the year. But they had 300 and something cars. And what Looney did, he run each night. He qualified. Jeff Floyd actually worked for me at the time. He set quick time. Scott was second, and Jeff Taylor was third. So Mooney had 15 heat races. He takes a winner only that goes to the A feature first night. And then he runs 15 Bs and takes the winner only. They go in behind those. Okay, so when they take off, Bloomquist ended up running 7th. Now I'm tickled to death because I knew he
in the A main that night.
A main that night, he runs 7th. He gets over to pits. I said, well, where'd the show, Scott? No, not show. I threw it away. I said, dude, what? I said, Scott, there's still over 300 cars here, and we got 7 in. Well, he didn't say he couldn't win it. He said, I'm going to start 19th. He didn't say he couldn't win it from there. His word was, it'll be harder to win it from there. He was planning on winning the race, but he wanted to get close to the front. So the next night he comes out there, and he wins a feature. So now he's going to start middle row. Mooney's going to start 33 cars, 3 wide, 11 deep. He's going to start 33 cars. So Scott's in the middle. And so we come back out there for the feature day, and 3 or 4 cars parked around. He went there and talked to that one kid. He said, I tell you what I do. I'll buy you 4 brand new tires if you give me those 4 tires right there, because it's seasoned. You know, that's what you want. So he brings over.
Hold on, Larry. You're using dirt terminology. These people don't understand this. You're saying that Scott Bloomquist looked at some competitor and said, "Give me your 4 used tires, and I'll give you 4 new ones."
That's right.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So anyway, he brings them over and he puts them on a rotisserie. He's talking to me while he's doing this, you know. I said, Scott, and that's before Mooney put dirt on the track, and they've been having trouble having flats out there. And he's done ground an 1/8 inch off of these tires, and he was telling me he was doing it for rotation weight and unsprung weight. And he said rotation weight is more important than unsprung weight. And he's telling me all this stuff, you know. And we got all lined up ready to run that race. I told my bunch, I said, we better get a bunch of tires ready, because we're going to have a lot of pit stops.
Was the pit area watching Scott grind these tires crazily?
Yeah. And you know, there's all kinds of rumor. You could hear any kind of story you wanted to, probably about that deal. They thought he lost his mind, you know. Anyway, when they started the race, he lapped all the way up to 4th.
Oh my God. Okay, so right now, okay, this was May 8th, 2004. Charlie Marlowe, Charlie, we want to drop that picture in right now. All right. Charlie is putting this picture in right now. So here you are, Larry. You're to the left. You're like me. Your hair's darker. Look at this young Scott Bloomquist to the right. He is so happy. The trophy's taller than him. And there it is. All-Tel Championship, $100,000 to win. There was his wife at the time. What do you remember? Where were you when you all won this $100,000? It was your car. Tell me where you were. How did you get to victory lane?
I was on the infield. That's where we pitted on the infield. We need to, so I was already out there and everything. But what was funny about, you know, when he's grinding them tires, you know, I said something to him. I said, Scott, I said, they're bad about having a flat here. He said, Shaw, have a little faith. I know what I'm doing. I said, okay. So in victory lane, that's the first thing he told me. He said, I told you, Shaw, to trust me. I said, I did.
Now, was there a story? Was there a rumor going on that when they threw the checkered flag, he blew a tire out, or is that false?
I don't remember that.
Okay, so he did not. Okay,
no, he
so
did not have a flat.
You prepare a car for him. Now, was this your car and your motor?
Yeah, everything was ours.
Did you get any of the $100,000?
No, I didn't get none. We sold cars, but I didn't get no money.
Hey,
it's kind of like when Moyer won the Dirt Track World Championship. We sold 246 cars that year, but I didn't get another 40,000.
Listen up, children. Listen up, children. That right there is why the man you're looking at, the great Larry Shaw, is a genius. He supplies Scott Bloomquist a car and everything. And how many cars do you think you sold after Bloomquist won the 100,000?
I don't know. It was a lot. We had a lot on order. You know, the way I got in the modified, I back up here. The way I got in the modified business, my race car business shop, pretty well everything was lost in 1994. The day the Daytona 500 was going on in 1994, we had a huge floor. I was actually Daytona. It pretty well lost everything we had. And that's where I lost a whole bunch of my late model racers, because here it is, 20th of February, and they all got cars on order, and they did not think I could get them done. So quite a few of them left me, you know. Greg Herron, Daryl France, some of the local people, they stayed with me. But I lost Wendell, Billy Moyer, Gundecker, you know, just on and on, because, and I don't blame them. They didn't think I could get them a car done, but I could. But they didn't have the faith I had that I could do it. But so anyway, I went about a year there when that happened, and then I decided the modified market would be pretty good to get into. So that's when I got into the modified market.
Larry, this is a big story right here, and you're glossing over it. In 1994, a fire destroys your business, and the late model guys, they're racing every single day. Late model guys are vagabonds. They're nuts. You know, if they ain't racing, they're tweaking out. So you can't get them new cars to go to East Bay. And now this is a very pivotal point that you just taught me. So this is how you get into the modifieds.
Yeah. my late model people had left me, and I seen that they wasn't that many modified builder. You know, Clark up at Walker, Missouri built modified, and there's one or two more around, but I could see that market was wide open, and we built one. Well, first one we built, I took a Ford front stub and turned it around backwards. Well, IMCA kicked that thing out right quick. We won 2 or 3 races with it. So then we had to go back and do what everybody else had done to put a stub on. So that's kind of where that all started. Yeah.
You know, you are a kind man. You don't brag on yourself, but I have good ears, and you have done so many things to ignite auto racing, whether it's the clip that you decided to get, that was your decision from Hal. Then you decide to go to the strut, which is what we have now today. The bird cage to 4-bar. You really were an innovator in your time. You might not be an engineer, but you were the one that said, here's what we're going to do. Where did you come up with these brilliant ideas? Were you born with this? Was your mother and father good leaders like you?
No, there was 9 of us kids, and I always thought I was the best one, but there was 9 of us. So I had a rough time in life. I mean, I had a good time, but you know, it was pretty rough. We lived on the farm, and my dad he was a hard worker. And then when I got out of high school, I got drafted in the military, 65, 66, 67, which I really don't have a problem with that. I'm really a veteran. I like it that way.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, Larry.
But yeah,
but
thank you. Back to how I figured out how to do a whole lot of things. Moyer was a real good testing tool for me. We went to Paducah, Kentucky one time, and Kevin Claycomb was leading the race, and Moyer got around him, and down there in turn 1, there was a big hole. Moyer kept running through that hole every time, just hit that hole every time. So after the race, we started home, we'd always talk about stuff. I said, Moyer, why did you keep running through that hole? He didn't need a stopwatch. He said, Shaw, that was the fastest way around the racetrack. So that's how we do that. So like back then, Stan Durrett at Muskogee, Oklahoma, which he passed away too, and Bill Willard at Lebanon, they'd pay Billy $500 to come up there and run, you know, to try to beat Phillips or beat somebody. And so I told Billy one time, I said, hey, Stan Durrett wants us to come to Muskogee Friday night. I said, I'm going to turn down the $500 if he'll let us have about 15 or 20 minutes after the racetrack so we can test. So, because every time we leave the racetrack, Billy said, well, I wish I'd move that one bar up or do this or that. So when the race over, he's in pits, I said, what do you think we should have done? Well, he told me that. I said, go ahead and do it because we got the racetrack. So we would test after the racetrack and learn stuff, you know. And Billy would he's so talented. He could tell me, yeah, that's a lot better. So that's how we really picked up and learned a lot, you know.
I want to get back to Scott Bloomquist for a minute. You know, Scott Bloomquist, we just lost him. He passed away in a horrible plane wreck. And it has shocked the dirt racing community. What, besides Bloomquist winning that 100,000 to win and shocking the modified world, I believe at that time we really knew how great he was because he comes out of a super late model, goes into a mod, immediately wins 100,000. What do you remember about him? Do you think he was different? A lot of people say he was weird. What do you remember about Bloomquist in your dealings with him?
I think he was just so smart that he was smarter than the rest of us, and maybe we didn't know how to take some of that stuff on he was talking about, you know. And then you got Randy Sweet, you know, that was right there on the same deal. And I'll come back to Randy a little bit. I'll talk to you about the car we built for Moyer in '97. But man, Scott was just, you talk to him and you think he's out there, but come find out it worked.
Yeah, because he'd go to Victor Lane. That's how he'd prove it, right?
Yeah, I talked to Jeff Purvis one day last week, and we was visiting about that. And, you know, first time Bloomquist went to Eldora, he passed Purvis and won the race. So, I mean, he never had been there before in his life, and he won the World 100, you know. So
yeah. Okay, so you mentioned 1997. Did you?
Okay.
What happened there?
After the far, I started doing the modified at Randy Sweet. I called Randy one day. I said, "Hey, Randy," I said, "I'm gonna build a new car for Moyer, because Moyer had kind of started running some Rayburn stuff, you know, after my car. I said, I'm building a new car for Moyer. I want to run the world. I want to run the topless 100 in a few more races. He said, I'm coming down there, Shaw. Get it done. He told him what to do. We did it. He made some special spindles, and we put them all in it. In 1997, Moyer won the topless 100, you know. And then we started building some late models again.
In your car?
In my car, yeah.
This is an incredible story. And this is one of the phrases that I've made famous over the last 2 years. My brother, the great Rusty Wallace, he said, Herman, it's sad to say, you got to remind people because they remember what they want to. So you're telling me Moyer goes to Rayburn and you go, let me build you a car. And he comes back, gets your super late model, and immediately wins at Eldora. Is that right?
No, we went to topless out here. It was right here at my track.
Okay, yeah.
Topless.
Yeah, okay, let's forget about Eldora, but still he wins the topless, which is one of the crown jewels.
Yeah.
That had to make you feel really good.
It did. And then shortly after that, we'll come back to this a little bit too. McDowell did a deal with Kid Hendricks and myself. I was part of a company called S&H Industrial. We did conveyor system. And Ken and myself went together and put McDowell in a car that we run together for 5 years. We won the topless and the World 100 and some more stuff, you know. So that's another, that kind of got me back in the late model business too.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. You don't need to respond, but for everybody that's listening, great people like Larry Shaw, the man you're looking at right now, they just gloss over things that are huge to us. Larry, you're smarter than the average man, that's for sure. You've made a lot of great decisions in your life. You always talk to me about the Wallaces, my family. You're always talking about Rusty and Mike. My brother, Mike, this is what I want to educate people on. My brother, Mike Wallace, is the most raw, talented race car driver of us all. Mike Wallace, my brother, won hundreds and hundreds of dirt races and was just unbelievably fast. Tell me your dealings with Rusty Wallace, my brother, and Mike Wallace.
Well, Rusty, when I was building an asphalt car, you and Rusty and Mike had that chassis business, poor boy race car chassis in St. Charles, Missouri. And Rusty actually built some stubs, sway bar. He made about all the brackets from an asphalt car. And about every 2 or 3 weeks, he would meet me at Poplar Bluff, Missouri, which is about halfway between here and St. Louis. And I would get all the parts and pay him for them. And sometimes, you know, Rusty went wide open all the time. Sometimes we would eat at Poplar Bluff at a steakhouse where we met, but sometimes we didn't. But Rusty, he helped me a lot in my asphalt days. He sure did. He'd give me good feedback on stuff I was trying to find out, you know. So, and then on Mike, man, Mike, he was just unbeatable at St. Charles and Peebly and Granite City. Just like I tell people, I probably kept him here 2 or 3 years longer than he would like to stay. He'd come pick up a new car and he'd tell me, he said, Shaw, I'm about ready to leave this vacuum cleaner business. I think I'm going to go to North Carolina and race NASCAR. I said, man, you're winning some mean races here, Mike. I don't know if I'd go. Well, maybe not. So then, but finally he went. And of course, you've been a huge part of my life too.
Yeah, well, I'm 7 years younger than Rusty. Rusty, I'm 61. Rusty's 68. Mike's 65. I always know that Rusty's 7 years older than me. Mike's 4 years older than me. Like Bill Elliott said, Larry, timing and circumstances. I was a child, and I would hide, you know, to get into pits and help. And I remember you just like yesterday. You know, Larry, one thing I wasn't going to talk about, but when I think about you and Julian Martin and Mark, even Bill Davis, that group down there in Batesville, you all are extremely clean people. Your jeans are always pressed. Your houses are beautiful. I know it's a strange question, but I want to get this off my chest. Even to this day, Lance Landers and Mark, their stuff is nicer than anybody in the world. Where did all this cleanliness, or was it Did you all see Julian and want to be like him? Where did all this, you were perfect. Where did all this come from?
Probably Julian mostly, because he always wore those starch Levi's with a crease in them. And he wore those dingo boots and always had a starch shirt turned up on the collar or whatever. He and his vehicles was always real clean and neat. So that's kind of, I think, where a lot of that come from. He, like on Sunday morning after we raced, he'd spend hours washing that car, and then Bill Davis, how can you say enough about him? He has done so much. He has done so much for racing that people don't really know. He was the one that, when Mark went east and had a little trouble come back, Bill called me and said, "Hey, I want to build Mark a couple of cars." So we built 2 cars, and I don't remember we went to Nashville or Cincinnati, but we went to one of the track, and Mark and Darrell was back and forth, and Mark was leading the race with 2 laps to go, and somebody had a wreck, and the caution come out. Well, Mark radioed in. That's when everybody listened to everybody's radio. Mark radioed in and said, "I don't have no brakes." Of course, he used another word there. And so we can't come in. But Darrell heard that, and he shot in putting new tires, and he passed us on the back straightaway and won the race with us in. So it took me a little while to get back on Gatorade after that. Wow.
So I want to talk about this a little bit, but I want my Charlie Marlowe. Charlie, we're going to insert a picture here. For everybody that doesn't know the great relationship between the man you're looking at right now, Larry Shaw, and Mark Martin. Charlie, let's insert that picture right here. So, Larry, what we're looking at right now is you built a dirt modified about 3 years ago or so. You painted it just like Mark's old cars, orange and white, and you put 5,000. And there's Mark and your son and your group, your wife. You dedicated that 5,000 car to Mark Martin. Tell me why.
Well, Mark actually told me I told him, he called one day and he wanted to know how close I was to building that 5,000 race car. And I said, it's coming up pretty quick. He said, "I want it." So that was a car that I built, and he wanted it. He took it. He kept it for a while, and then he didn't have no place to put it, so we actually sold it to some gentleman in California. But yeah, he wanted that car real bad, And Tony Steert, he come to Mark's place and did some autograph stuff and everything. And Tony had ordered a car from me. And Mark called up there. He said, "Hey, Shaw, Tony's dad come to get that car. They don't have enough money to pay for that thing. Don't worry about it. Just let them have it." So Mark took care of that for Tony. Because he said, "He's done so much for me. He won't take no money, and I've got to do something for him." So Mark bought that brand. And then we went to, Tony wanted us to come to Paducah. That he's going to rent that next night. So Kevin and myself, we go to Paducah, and he wins the race. And it's kind of like, it was really funny after the race. He's in his trailer, and people want T-shirts and different things, He's over here, hold on. I'm going to talk to Kevin Shaw for a minute. Because after the heat race, Kevin moved some bars around and changed front end. And he did 3 or 4 things. And Tony, he's going to learn this stuff. He said, "Kevin, tell me all them 3 or 4 things you did. Which one was the most important one?" So, and then he told him, and then he went back signing autographs. So that was pretty something.
I know that everybody that's listening to this, you have helped so many people. Nowadays, when somebody does something, they think I got to get paid first. It seemed like back in the day, Larry, you were very generous. I'll build you a car. We'll take care of this. Did you eventually ever get paid for this, or did you build these people cars and then make money after they won in that car and you'd sell the car? What was your philosophy, always helping people?
Well, I was probably the first one to start that house car program. And that thing got out of hand right quick. They had all the different circuits, had USAC, NCRA, NDRA, World of Outlaw. It seemed like it took a different car for every one of those. So Moyer had 4 cars, 4 house cars, what I built for Moyer. There's a picture of them somewhere, all 4 of them there. And then I had Wendell Wallace, Kevin Gundecker. I don't know, Mike. I think Mike always bought his. He probably didn't know everything. But anyway, I had all them house car program. And what I would do, like at the end of the year, I would get them back, straighten them up, and sell them and recover most of my money. That's kind of the way my program worked.
But them winning was the greatest marketing tool of all time for you. So you were a genius before everybody else because they would win and then everybody buy your cars.
Yeah, my pastor at my church, Brother Kirk Howard, he asked me one day what it took. What did I do to sell so many race cars? I said, we just win. We win races. He was using that to tell people to win sold, you know. He said, Larry Shaw told me the way he sold all those race cars was just win races. So, you know, and nowadays there's so much of it. Back then, you know, all we had was newspaper. You didn't know anything about it till the next week, you know.
I just did a special about that on social media about, you know, sometimes people still want to smell the ink of an old newspaper nowadays. And boy, news travels fast now, Larry. So, Larry, you look good. Are you on your cell phone now? Do you use your cell phone?
I use it. I keep up with you.
Yeah.
You know, I've had cancer 3 times. I about wore MD Anderson and carted that out, but I'm all good right now. I got a heart monitor on. They think there's something wrong with the heart. I don't know what that could be, but rather than that, I'm good. I feel good, and I'm getting on up in the years and everything. Hey, can I touch on one thing? We may get on Larry Phillips here in a minute, but when I got inducted into the Dirt Track Hall of Fame in 2004.
Congratulations. That's a huge deal, Larry.
I think I was third bunch in. So anyway, I'm sitting next to Chris Carmichael. You know, he's there talking to me, telling me jokes, and he's a funny man. He was a funny man, and I'm trying to concentrate because I'm going to get up there in a minute and say something. I'm trying to get myself prepared, and he's telling me these jokes, and some of them wasn't real good, but they was funny. And then he asked me who I thought the best race car driver in the whole world. He said the whole world. And I said, well, my opinion, Larry Phillips, because he started on asphalt, he went to dirt, back to asphalt, he won all those NASCAR championships. And he told me, he said, ever since Larry Phillips has come on the scene, he has been on the cover of National Speed Sports magazine more than any race car driver in any league. That's a big deal.
So let me say this. Myself and Mark Martin, your best friend in life. I know how close you and Mark Martin are. Mark Martin and myself done a catching up with Mark Martin last week, and it was Mark. Mark wanted to bring it up. So Mark Martin is just appalled that Larry Phillips, Mark Martin is appalled Larry Phillips is not in the NASCAR Hall of Fame because Larry won like 5, 6 NASCAR regional championships. Now, hold on. That's Mark Martin. Then Mark Richards of Rocket Chassis during Kenny conversation. I said, who's the greatest race car driver of all time? And he brings up Larry Phillips again right away because in those days, Larry built everything by himself. Why do you think Larry was the greatest?
Well, if you had to line up against him and run, you found out right quick. I mean, he did not make no mistakes, and he knowed all the tricks. And you know about this one trick he had. They'd bring Dave Watson and Alcindric and all them people in to beat him. Well, I was always shocked when he had a cigarette lighter in the car. I said, we got that cigarette lighter out for Larry. He said, well, sometimes I like smoke. But what he would do, he would light up a cigarette on the parade lap on the caution deal, and he'd have that hand out the window. Well, if you didn't run there all the time, you didn't know what was about to happen. Because on that coming off of 4 there to take the checkered flag, he still had that hand out when that guy behind you halfway asleep, so he's not going to go. He still got that cigarette out. He'd put that cigarette out and he's gone. You know, just little bitty things. And man, he just didn't make, like, I built him a new dirt car for Jeter when Jeter and Cadwell split up. I built Larry a new dirt car, and I go up his house at Springfield. We leave there, and I go to Denver, Colorado with him out there. And he wins the race at Denver. And I mean, just that was after the asphalt day that I got to know him pretty good on dirt, you know.
Yeah. The great Larry Phillips. Hey, you know what I think about Larry as I'm talking to you? As much as it aggravates me that the Northeast controls the NASCAR Hall of Fame, you know, and I get it. They're very proud up there. But when I think about our area, Larry, listen to this. In our area, the Ozark region, Missouri, you have the Wallaces, Kenny Schrader, Carl Edwards, Jamie McMurray, Larry Phillips, Billy Moyer comes down to Arkansas. We have as many greats that have won more NASCAR races, cup races, than anybody. If you added Rusty Wallace's wins, Jamie McMurray, Carl Edwards, Kenny Schrader.
Yeah.
We have some great racers in this area, Larry, don't you think?
I think so. And I guarantee you one thing, if NASCAR Hall of Fame was located in Springfield, Missouri, he would have been the first one in.
You're exactly right. Well, Larry, I want to just, we're getting towards the end here. We're already on an hour. I want to go back to your military days. First of all, I want to say this. I'm not half the man you are, Larry. I want to thank you for your military service. Just touch on your military days.
Well, I got drafted in 1965, and I got sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana in July of 1965. Now, that's the hottest place in the world. We had wooden barracks, no air conditioning, and that was really rough for that 12 weeks we spent down there. And when I got out of there, I got sent to El Paso, Texas, and I got out there, and after I was in the military 15 months, they promoted me to E5, which you got private, E1, E2, E3, E4, 5. So I got promoted to E5, and the reason they promoted me, they needed a motor sergeant in the battalion. So I got to be the motor sergeant in the battalion in 1966. And that's when I come home and got married in 1966. Cheryl and myself, we got married. Of course, she'd be the other half. Sorry about that. But we got married in 1966, and then I went back to El Paso, and then shortly after I got out, Kevin was born, then Kurt was born. Cheryl and Kurt and Kevin, they've been a huge part of my life. Because Cheryl never did. I mean, man, you know, I'm going to load up and go to Michigan, and she's wherever you want to do. So that's kind of it.
Man, we've got a lot of people around there. You think of Don and Doug and Dennis Schoenfeld, the Schoenfeld. Here, real quick, everybody, listen to this. Shaw Race Cars, Schoenfeld Headers, Larry Phillips, Rusty Wallace, Mike Wallace,
Rodex.
Carl Edwards, Kenny Schrader. You get the picture now?
Rodex, yeah.
Great area. Well, Larry Shaw.
One other thing, Kenny Schrader told me to tell you to bring up Terre Haute. So let me tell you the story there.
Terre Haute, Indiana, the action track.
He ran at Talladega Sunday, and I had built him a new race car, and he had his men to come and get it, and was going to take it to Terre Haute to run Sunday night. And he asked if I'd come up there. I said, yeah, I'll come up there. So I rode up there with Moyer. He passed Moyer and won the race. And I'm in Victory Lane with Schrader. I said, I don't know how I'm going to get home. I rode up here with Moyer. And Moyer, he was all about winning and probably need the money too. But Schrader always, he brings that up every time I see him, that I had to ride back home with Moyer. He asked, said, how'd that go? I said, oh, it cooled off that time about down around Poplar Bluff. He got better.
I'm going to add to something like that. Kenny Schrader is the most humble man. He always worries about his talent. And I told Kenny Schrader, I said, Kenny, stop it. You were one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. So Kenny Schrader outrunning Billy Moyer that day, that's because Kenny does not recognize how great he was. Schrader's got a handful of rings from, non-wing USAC sprint car champion, midget champion. I mean, I deal with Kenny on a daily basis, and I always got to tell him how great he is. That sounds like a Kenny Schrader bragging that he outrun Billy Moyer. Well, yeah. Kenny's one of the greatest, don't you think?
He is one of the greatest, sure. Well, we're so fortunate to have all these good race car drivers right here in the Midwest. Somebody said one time that Batesville it's a NASCAR, Charlotte's a hub of NASCAR racing, but there wasn't for sure if Batesville, Arkansas wasn't a hub of short track racing. And that may be true.
It's you, Larry. That is you. Listen, Mark Martin from Batesville, Arkansas, and that's awesome. That's awesome. But Larry Shaw Race Cars. I mean, most likely, if you ever say the greatest modified builder of all time, it's going to be Shaw Race Cars. I mean, that's all there is to it. So you all have made that little bitty town very popular up that big hill with that river on the bottom and just old country town. Hey, were you born in Batesville?
I was born at Newport, about 30 miles away. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Larry, we will end like this now. Let me ask you some bullet point questions. How are you doing right now, and what are you doing?
Well, I've got some real stuff, and I kind of play with real estate a little bit, and I got a cattle farm. I got all of Bill Davis's. Bill's got a big Brammer cattle ranch up here in the hills, and I got all his stuff. And I just kind of, that's what I do, just take care of my cattle and my rental stuff, and I got some real estate stuff I deal with off and on. And I play around with classic cars.
I want to brag on people from Arkansas. I know a lot of people think that Arkansas is a bunch of rednecks with gravel back roads, but the people from Arkansas, like yourself and Bill Davis, are geniuses. You all start businesses. I know Bill went back and started ranching with Black Angus, and you guys are always money makers. You innovate, you re-innovate when you're done with one business. I admire you, Larry. I admire you very much. You all always keep it going. If one business ends, you start another business. So that's my next question. What did you do with Larry Shaw Race Cars? Who owns Larry Shaw right now? Who owns the race car business?
Scott and Marlene Mosley. They're from down the lower part of the state. When I going through all that cancer and everything, I just didn't feel like working. I go back and forth to MD Anderson, just didn't have no energy. And I took chemo there every 2 weeks for 14 months. It just, like 52 hours, it just took everything out of me. I didn't have no energy. Just really didn't even feel like doing anything. And they come to me and wanted to buy it, and I sold it to them. And Kevin still works there.
Well, I'll be darned. I always thought that, Jeff Taylor owned it.
He's involved with that. They was his sponsor, so he's involved with them pretty heavy there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Just this is funny because you and Mark Richards from Rocket, you guys admire each other. It's always funny. I learned that Mark Richards does not own Rocket Chassis, and now I've learned that Jeff Taylor doesn't own Shaw. Say those two names again that own Shaw.
Scott and Marlene Mosley.
I'll be darned. Well, you just taught me a lot, my friend.
Yeah.
Look at him, everybody. There he is, the great Larry Shaw.
Hey,
Larry.
I want to say one thing here. First of all, I want to thank my wife, Cheryl, and Kevin and Kirk. They have been a huge part of my life. They've been with me all the way. And then all these race fans, car owners, and man, I had the best race car drivers there was out there. Steve Arkin, he drove my race car. He's from Canada A. And I had this tremendous amount of race car. McDowell, he was super for me. I just always had real good race car drivers, and we did. And it would be interesting to know how many races we actually won, but I don't have no clue at all.
Pretty much all of them back in those days.
Larry, we won any, far as I know, any big race from the 80s till 90s. I won it at least once or twice. So, yeah, I will take a little bit of credit there.
And we'll leave it right there, everybody. From 80 to 90, that man you're looking at right there, he was the car builder and won every type of big race there was. Won them all. Well, Larry Shaw, I want to thank you so much. Listen, everybody, we are in podcast form. You can listen to Larry on the way to work and on the way back home, maybe 2 or 4 times. We are on iTunes and Spotify. Larry, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Goodbye, everybody.